First month costs. So, before you arrive in China, many people will have a lot of questions about the different kinds of costs you'll experience in the first month. So, in this video, we're going to try and break it down as easily as possible. So, in your first month, what will you experience? You'll need to get adjusted. So, that may mean learning a bit of the language or meeting new people and adjusting to the cultural differences. Finding food, so different Chinese food that you may like. Finding an apartment. This is a big one, and many people have a lot of questions about it, so we'll be going more in depth about that throughout the orientation. Getting stuck into work, so knowing your colleagues and finding out what lessons you may be teaching or what is expected of you at work. Exploring your city, so knowing what there is to do around and what you can do with your friends. So what are some breakdown of costs? So let's have a look at travel first. Buses will usually cost you around 2 RMB, but they may go a bit higher depending on how much distance you need to travel. They do vary in colour, but that's usually just based on what the number is. Next up, a subway. So not every city has subways, but if you do have a subway, it usually starts again around 2 RMB, but will go up depending on how far you have to travel. Next up are the rent bikes, which every city should have. They start off at around 1 RMB. But if you do go over a certain time limit, you may have to pay more. They're very useful. Next up are taxis or Didi. So taxis are the most expensive way of travelling, but even saying that, it's still very cheap in China. So it starts off at around 9 RMB, but the larger cities may start off at around 13, 14 RMB. You'll notice that some of the colours are different. This may mean that they have a slightly higher price. Now, if you want to get a Didi, they are cheaper, but make sure you download the app and know how to use it. So, apartments. This is going to be by far your biggest cost in your first month. But don't worry, because you can negotiate upfront costs with the agent or the landlord. You will have to pay some sort of agency fee if you're using an agent. This is usually half a month's rent or a full month's rent. This really depends on the city or the agent. You will have to sign a 1-year contract. So you can pay month by month, or every 3 months, or every 6 months. This depends on your landlord and what they agree to. But you will have to sign a 1-year contract. If you leave the contract early, you'll probably lose your deposit, or they'll say you can find somebody else to take your place in that apartment, and then they can give you the deposit. Some companies may provide a settle-in bonus. This is really to help with that apartment cost. So make sure that you plan and you budget well for that. So, SIM card and internet. Once you arrive in China, you'll need to get a local SIM card and data plan. That's very easy. A SIM card can cost around 100 RMB. There are different phone companies, so China Unicom, China Mobile and China Telecom. Now, when you go to get internet, it would be a lot easier if you get the same internet as you did the SIM card from the same phone company, because then you can get a joint account and you can pay for your internet with the SIM card. This is really easy to do, but you may have to do that later once you've already got an apartment. Just ask your agent or landlord or even a co-worker to go with you and help you with the translations. You can get a good internet plan from around 900 RMB, but when you move into an apartment, be aware that maybe some apartment buildings can only use one phone company. This is very common in China, so you may be asked to use a certain one, and there's nothing you can change about that. But make sure you have your phone unlocked before you arrive. So, utilities. Electricity, gas, and water are the utilities that you'll have to pay when you move into an apartment. Don't worry, it's rather cheap in China. But electricity bill will probably be the most expensive. And in the summer, you'll need to use the air conditioning. In the winter, you'll need to use the heating. You can pay these monthly, bi-monthly, or yearly, but you'll have to ask your agent or landlord how you pay them and when you need to pay them. So, furnishings. Everybody loves a cozy house. So, you'll want bedding, towels, kitchen utensils, appliances, and a few different things to make it comfy. Most cities in China will have an IKEA, but if your city doesn't, don't worry, because there are many local supermarkets that will also supply these things. If you can wait a little bit, you can use online. So Taobao and Baopals are very good, and you can buy cheap things on there like bedding. You can also get clothing and things like that there too. But generally, you can find anything that you want. So next up is food. This one's really important. Maybe when you arrive in China, you're a little bit scared to try the Chinese food. Don't worry, there are the staples like egg fried rice. This is going to cost around 10 to 35 RMB depending on what kind of quality you get. You can also usually find a quite standard noodle dish for a similar price. Now, if you like to cook for yourself, you can go to the supermarket and get one chicken breast starting from around 5 RMB. If you like vegetables, then you can go to the vegetable market, and for 500 grams worth of, let's say, carrots, you can start from around 1 RMB. It's really, really cheap to buy food in China and cook. Now, if you don't like cooking or you aren't a fan of Chinese food yet, you can also find Western food. Usually pizza and burgers are the easiest to find, and they start off at around 50 RMB. Now, honestly, you have to try Chinese food because it is delicious and it is a lot cheaper. You can try Beijing duck or dan dan mian, which is a spicy noodle dish, and there are many vegetable dishes that you can find that are relatively cheap. So your first month, try and experience the Chinese food a bit more. Now, a phone. First of all, make sure you unlock your phone at home. This is really important. Then you need to get a Chinese card when you arrive in China. If for whatever reason you can't use the Chinese SIM card and your phone is unlocked but it's still not working, you can find a cheap smartphone in China. But be aware it will set you back around 500 to 600 RMB. So, how can you budget all of this? Well, before you arrive, think about what you want to spend in your first month. Remember that apartment's going to be the most expensive. So pack essential clothes. But if you do have larger feet or larger size clothes, make sure you bring a few more. You can still find them in China, but usually online, so it will take a little bit of time for them to get to you. Also, when you're looking at appliances or household items, only buy 1 or 2 that are necessary for the time being and buy more later when you have been paid. Check different stores so you know the different prices and you can budget properly. Wait to buy internet if you feel that that's more expensive. You can use your 4G on your phone or even your internet at your place of work for the time being until you can afford to buy it at home. Eat cheap. Like I said, Chinese food is cheap, so try more of that. Walk or bike around. Obviously, this is the cheapest way to get around. Try and avoid using taxis or DDs in your first month because it will set you back quite a bit of money. Choose basic over luxury. You'll regret it if you spend all of your money that first month. If you budget properly, then after that first month, you'll feel a lot more settled and a lot more stable. Have a look at our blog post on an English teacher's packing list for China. So, just a few things to remember. Plan for your first month. I can't go into this enough. It's very important that you make sure you know what you need to do in that first month in regard to costs. Renting an apartment will be your biggest expense, so make sure you have some money aside or ask the questions that you need to in order to be able to plan in advance. Have a few home comforts. Within that first month, you may miss a chocolate bar that you can't find in China, so bring over like 1 or 2 things that remind you of home. Also, don't forget to check out our blog posts and videos that can help you specifically regarding money. You can check out our video on money needed on arrival. It is quite long, but there are different sections that you can flick through to find specifically an answer. Go to our YouTube channel. There are so many videos that can help explain China a bit more to you. And don't forget to contact us for any needs that you may have.